Chapter 1927. Joining in. Chapter 1927. Joining in. The 27 chess pieces seemed like they had merged into one. Golden divine light radiated from the chess pieces, and an unparalleled illusion emerged. The chess pieces moved forward, and it felt as if a huge pagoda had arrived, crushing the enemy. The other chess pieces used to attack the young man were crushed into nothingness. The young man waved his finger, and the 27 chess pieces flew and dashed all over the place in a frenzy. Sounds of chess pieces cracking and breaking filled the air. All the great path chess pieces of the other 8 cultivators had been turned into dust. The unparalleled illusion towered over everyone with a tinge of condescension. This competition of the great paths ended without a hint of suspense. The young man achieved an overwhelming victory and crushed his opponents. Furthermore, of the 27 chess pieces he used for the attack, none were destroyed. Among the 36 chess pieces, 35 remained. Congratulations! After the battle, the Eastern Deity Island host deity congratulated the young man. She then continued, "You can wait on the side, and we will enter the Eastern Deity Gate later together." "Okay." The young man nodded. With a flash, his body disappeared. He moved swiftly to the side of the Eastern Deity Gate. There was an empty penthouse over there. So the young man went there. After that, he crossed his legs and sat down before continuing with his cultivation. Invincible, thought many practitioners standing in front of the chessboard. No one could even threaten the young man. The result was splendid. He only lost 1 chess piece. They wondered if someone else had been able to do this before. At that time, the Eastern Deity Island's deity host spoke again. "Who else?" As soon as she finished asking, someone immediately strode forward towards the chessboard. He landed one of the 6 locations on the chessboard. The next moment, 36 great path chess pieces appeared and hovered around his body. "It is the young city lord of Wushang City," said someone with a surprised expression. Wushang City was one of the main cities on the Penglai continent. Wushang City's city lord was powerful. This young city lord's cultivation level was already at a frightening level. He was at least on the 6th plane, his combat ability was remarkable, and his talent was extraordinary. He chose to be the first to enter the stage, probably because he wanted to silence and stun the others, to make other powerful cultivators avoid him, to not compete with him. The young city lord of one of the strongest factions on the Penglai continent, Wushang City's young city lord Lu Qing, Shengguan Qiuya explained to Yi Futian. She continued, "It is very well known all across the Penglai continent. He is a lot more exceptional compared to Jun Qiuyan. Of course, the same goes for me. He is the heir of Wushang City. There is no doubt about it." The reason why Lu Qing chose to be the first one to enter is to pronounce that the 2nd seat belonged to him. "That means that you would also lose if you went up there?" asked Yi Futian. "That's the most likely case," replied Shengguan Qiuya. "If you're not in a hurry, avoiding him is a good option. While you are probably stronger than him, I am afraid that there may be other powerful characters in the later round. Once you expose your strength, you may become the target of the larger group and be surrounded. There might be some pressure." From Shengguan Qiuya's point of view, the overwhelming power that Yi Futian displayed was sufficient to defeat even Lu Qing. However, Lu Qing was still a strong opponent who might be able to pressure Yi Futian. "It looks like the young city lord of Wushang City has sealed the victory of this first round of battle," said someone. For a time, no one actually got on the board. "The young city lord of Wushang City? Eh?" An elegant-looking young man flashed and appeared on the large chessboard. The man had a very handsome face and pure white skin. He was refined and elegant like a woman, a rare pretty boy. "Beiyuan continent." "Bai Gu," said the young man gently with a feminine yet dreary voice, sending chills down several people's spines. Named continents were never weak. Beiyuan continent was a continent of similar strength compared to Penglai continent. However, most people had never been to a place so far away before, so, in comparison, the name of Beiyuan continent was unfamiliar to most. However, some of those in major and powerful factions knew what the Bai family name of Beiyuan continent meant. The Bai family name of Beiyuan continent conquered the entire Beiyuan continent. Unlike the Penglai continent, they were the absolute conqueror. Even Lu Qing stopped to look at Baigu. He looked at Baigu with a rather solemn expression. However, he did not seem too bothered by it. If he did not encounter him here, he would still have to face him in a later battle. It did not matter that much to him. I knew that practitioners who came to cultivate and train in Eastern Deity Island this time would be strong. Wushang City dominates part of the Penglai continent while the royal Bai family conquers the Beiyuan continent. This old man is nameless, but I would like to join in the fun. Another man stepped up. He was elderly, but his aura was domineering. He was a high-order Renhuang. This elder defeated many people who competed against him elsewhere when encountering a great path opportunity. He is mighty. The expressions on some were solemn, and most were at least a little shocked. From the conversations and comments, they began to understand Baigu's weight. It was only the first battle. Were all the powerful cultivators rushing into the chess battle? Since that is the case, I will also join in the fun, said another voice. This time, it was a woman Renhuang. She wore a long red robe and had an air of elegance and glamour as if she were a queen whom one should never offend. Blood Empress, Shengguan Qiuye said softly. Every practitioner from Penglai continent seemed to tremble after seeing her. What was going on? One after another, powerful characters had entered the stage. Were they rushing in to prove themselves in the chess battle? Could they not wait until the next round? Each of these practitioners who joined in was a powerful cultivator. They were proud. The mysterious young man from before was too powerful and caused many to avoid him intentionally. That in and of itself had already violated their principles. Now, the mysterious young man had already won. He would no longer take part in the battle. Would they avoid the battle again? Moreover, in this battle to pass through the gate, thousands of practitioners from various continents remained. It was truly a situation where powerful cultivators were as common as clouds in the sky. Who knew what kinds of opponents would appear in the next round? Every battle would have someone powerful, particularly after the battle where the 9 victors had to battle again. So, it was inevitable. They did not want to keep waiting to continue avoiding others. As such, the current situation was created. Since many powerful characters were already like that, there was nothing for the others to avoid. One after another, people began to step onto the chessboard. Not many could step into the core area of Eastern Deity Island in the first place. Most people knew their limits, they were only there for the experience. Since that was the case, why be picky? There was nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, if they were there to train, the higher the number of powerful characters, the better. Seeing the scene before them, many knew that this round of battle belonged to the few strong people. The rest were just there to participate. A few of them are very strong. Let's avoid this? Shengguan Qiuye said. However, just as she ended her sentence, Yi Futian strode forward and said, "Help me keep an eye on him." Leaving Jun Qiuyan behind, Yi Futian walked forward and moved onto the chessboard, leaving Shengguan Qiuye with a wide-eyed stare. This guy, however, she knew just how powerful Yi Futian was. In a 1-versus-1 situation, whether it was Lu Qing or Baigu, none of those on the board would defeat Yi Futian. However, she worried that if Yi Futian showed his true strength, he would be targeted, and in that situation, who knew what could happen? This guy also went up there. Many Penglai continents Renhuang also noticed Yi Futian. He was ringing Jun Qiuyan all over the place, so it was natural that people paid attention to him. In addition to that, practitioners at the cliff face relic earlier had amused expressions on their faces. So, he is moving, they thought. Earlier, several extraordinary characters entered the stage, and most people thought that the winner would be one of them. However, when Yi Futian emerged, they knew that the ultimate victor would be Yi Futian. Among them, one person said with confidence, "It looks like the victor of this battle is decided." The victor is decided? Lu Qing, the Blood Empress, Bai Chu, these are all powerful people. I would assume it is still very much up in the air, no? Someone replied. They will not win, answered the guy who spoke earlier. He glanced at the other person with a profound smile. Huh. The person seemed perplexed and asked, "Then, who do you think will be the victor?" Him. The guy pointed at Yi Futian, which led to a lot of people looking at him. Yi Futian, with his white hair, wore a white outfit. His aura and demeanor were definitely extraordinary. Devilishly handsome, Yi Futian's face could be regarded as handsome as Baigu, if not even more so. For a short time, he definitely attracted the gazes of many people. However, to claim that he could defeat all the strong characters on the board? It was still a questionable remark, to say the least. Of course, since someone did make that claim, it meant that he was definitely quite exceptional in some areas. So, who was this person? On the chessboard, Yi Futian landed in a location. Instantly, 36 chess pieces appeared and hovered around his body. It was as if they were created from a spell of the Matrix. It was quite incredible. Yi Futian injected his divine consciousness and power of the Great Path into the chess pieces. Then, the next moment, the chess pieces began buzzing and emitting whooshing noises. The will of the Great Path began to emanate from the chess pieces. It seemed very natural. Then Yi Futian frowned. He felt as if someone had fixed their eyes on him. He raised his head. On the chessboard, someone on his side decided to start his attack. 9 chess pieces rushed over towards. The chess pieces contained an extreme power of the thunder. They transformed into the 9 beams of the light of thunder and flew straight toward Yi Futian. The 9 beams of light of the Great Path of Thunder shot at Yi Futian. Yi Futian raised and waved his arms. Immediately after, a chess piece flew out and drew a perfect and beautiful curve that transformed into a sword will. The sword will directly pierced through the opponent's 9 chess pieces, destroying every single one in an instant. The 9 chess pieces fell. The practitioner looked at Yi Futian. In front of Yi Futian, the only thing left was the frightening aura flowing from that chess piece. He only used 1 piece to defeat his 9 pieces. On the chessboard, several others turned their eyes toward Yi Futian. This guy also seemed very strong. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1928, All of You Together. Chapter 1928, All of You Together. The key to winning in the chess battle was the strength of one's Great Path and their law power. The level of the power of the Great Path contained within every chess piece was the same. The person lost 9 chess pieces to Yi Futian's chess with the Great Path of the sword. Clearly, his power of the Great Path of Thunder was far inferior to Yi Futian's power of the Great Path of Attack. The expression on the face of the person who attacked Yi Futian changed slightly. Then, Yi Futian pointed his finger toward the sky. The next moment, 9 chess pieces appeared at the same time. Each of the 9 chess pieces contained an incredibly powerful sword will. Moreover, every sword will seemed to be slightly different. Amidst the chess battle, they shook intensely while making crisp, whooshing sounds. Go! Yi Futian waved his palm. In an instant, the 9 chess pieces flew toward the Renhuang who attacked him before. Feeling the sword aura hidden with the chess pieces, the practitioner's expression changed. His remaining 27 chess pieces flew over and transformed into a giant roaring thunder beast. Surrounded by the chess pieces, the illusion of a daunting thunder beast emerged. It devoured the sky and charged straight towards Yi Futian's chess pieces. Bzzz. Sharp, deafening sounds filled the air. The 9 Great Path of the sword chess pieces were devoured directly, and they vanished before everyone's eyes. However, in just an instant, the sword will pierce through the giant thunder beast and headed straight toward the practitioner. Seeing the incoming sword will whistle over, the practitioner quickly raised his arms in an attempt to block. The chess pieces drew another beautiful curve and turned around. The power of thunder on the chessboard disappeared, and the aura from the 27 chess pieces disappeared as well. Apart from that, the practitioner also used his own powers. The destruction of one's chess pieces or the utilization of one's own power in the match meant one's elimination. Then, looking at Yi Futian's side, his 9 chess pieces were still buzzing and hovering in front of him. They were still in perfect condition. Complete victory. All the cultivators present were slightly shocked when they saw the scene unfold before them. While a victory was common, Yi Futian eliminated his opponent in the first battle of this round without losing anything. That strength was definitely uncommon, and it made even more people pay attention to him. Earlier, someone made the bold claim that there would be no suspense to this battle. Yi Futian would be the winner. Many thought that it was simply due to boasting. Now, it looked like this white-haired Renwang's strength was indeed quite overwhelming. Perhaps he really was worthy of being considered a winner of this battle. At that time, multiple chess pieces began to move and flew all over the gigantic chessboard. The other cultivators had also started to move. The chess pieces of Lu Qing, the young city lord of Wushang City, danced in front of him. It was not one by one or perhaps in a group of 9. Instead, all 36 of his chess pieces flew out at the same time. They converged and created a giant axe. It was also filled with a violent power of the great path of thunder. It was also accompanied by a frightening dark gold airflow, which caused crackling sounds that filled the sky. 36 chess pieces flew into the sky before slashing down at a person in front of him. The person's expression changed after sensing the power of the attack. 36 chess pieces danced and converged into an unbreakable spear before clashing against the descending chess pieces coming from the sky. The thunder battle axe slashed downward, splitting the opponent's spear into 2 and the accompanying chess pieces into smithereens. Such a potent attack. The hearts of many cultivators trembled. Moreover, Lu Qing used all 36 of his chess pieces in his attack. He did not leave any space for himself at all. If his attack had failed to defeat his opponent and his chess pieces were restrained, it would be game over for him. Or if someone else had used the opportunity to sneak an attack on him and forced him to use his own strength to block it, he would also be eliminated. It was incredible confidence. Very few use all 36 of their chess pieces to initiate an attack. Bai Gu, the Blood Empress, and the powerful cultivators also started making their moves one after another. The chess pieces in front of Bai Gu danced, twisted, and turned while a chilly and frightening aura sealed the sky around him, creating a great path of ice seal domain. Everything came from those chess pieces. Even when other chess pieces tried to attack him, it was difficult to get through this ice-sealed great path domain. At the same time, the twisting and turning chess pieces also converged and created a formidable giant ice dragon. Bearing its claws and teeth, it breathed at a person in front of it. Its breath turned the air cold. The opponent wanted to initiate an attack. He poured his power of the great path into his chess pieces, but the chess pieces were sealed with ice in front of the dragon's breath, turning into ice. The chess pieces no longer seemed to have any strength. What incredible frost will! Someone watching the battle outside the chessboard exclaimed after seeing the power of the ice seal. He then said, "Everyone battling on the chessboard is on the same level. It is easier to determine the strength of one's great path. This chessboard matrix is truly an idea from a genius. Anyone who emerges as the victor must be the one with the strongest potential." In another location, the Blood Empress attack turned into a crimson-red light. Crimson roses seemed to appear everywhere her chess pieces passed through. Under the beautiful outer appearances laid frightening crimson lightning that destroyed everything. Apart from them, several others also displayed formidable strength. However, Yi Futian, the young city lord of Wushang City Lu Qing, Bai Gu, and the Blood Empress were able to defeat their opponents without losing any of their chess pieces. It was as if the competition between them had already begun. None wanted to fall behind, and one was stronger than another. "Let's work together." The other participants transmitted their voices to each other. Lu Qing, Bai Gu, and the Blood Empress were all very powerful. There was no way they could win. Moreover, the white-haired Renwang's great path chess pieces were also incredible and were a great threat. If they fought alone, they would have no chance. Close to Yi Futian, several Renhuang initiated their attacks at the same time. Chess pieces flew towards Yi Futian from 3 directions. From the front, beams of golden light of the great path flashed. The chess pieces each converged into a tiny golden cauldron. 36 tiny cauldrons formed surrounded an area and charged towards him. From another direction, strands of sharp sword auras flew towards Yi Futian. From the last direction, great path chess pieces turned into a golden light that flew across the sky and shot straight at Yi Futian. The intention was to bypass Yi Futian's chess pieces and directly attack his person, to force him into making a move. The chess pieces around Yi Futian's body started dancing at the same time. They hovered and circled his body. Multiple powerful sword wills flowed around the area and created a great path of the sword domain that spread outward. All 36 tiny cauldrons descended at the same time. When they entered the sword domain, crisp cracking sounds could be heard. In a single moment, the cauldrons transformed from chess pieces were crushed into pieces. At the same time, the other attacks also arrived. However, the conclusion was the same. The moment their chess pieces entered the sword domain created by Yi Futian's chess pieces, they would be directly destroyed. Their attacks looked like suicide attacks. Many became speechless after witnessing this. Was the gap between their great paths so great? Moreover, even if they were using the same great path of the sword, their strengths were on completely different levels. The other battles were similar. Lu Qing and Bai Gu were also clearly on another level. However, at that time, Lu Qing encountered a very powerful opponent. It was the elderly man who had entered the chessboard just a little bit after him. In that battle, the old man got rid of 9 of Lu Qing's chess pieces. So, he was left with only 27 pieces. The Blood Empress lost 3 chess pieces in her battles. Only Bai Gu was like Yi Futian and did not lose a single chess piece. They were undamaged. However, this could be due to the opponents they faced. As the battle raged on, the number of people left decreased substantially. As predicted by the crowd, only 4 people remained on top of the chessboard: Yi Futian, Lu Qing, Bai Gu, and the Blood Empress. Coincidentally, they stood in 4 different locations. Yi Futian stood near Bai Gu while the Blood Empress was closer to Lu Qing. The 4 of them fell silent for a moment as they examined each other. Lu Qing had the least amount of chess pieces left. It was still 27 pieces. The elder from earlier took down 9 chess pieces in his violent attack formed by 36 chess pieces. It was incredibly difficult. However, in subsequent battles, he did not lose even one. So, among the 4 who would go next? You go down. At that time, a voice emerged. It was Bai Gu's voice. He was rather similar to Yi Futian in a way. They were both very handsome. Their handsomeness was more feminine due to their cultivation styles. Yi Futian was affected by the power of Yin, which caused him to carry a more feminine and somber air around him. Bai Gu also similarly cultivated in the power of ice. Perhaps it was due to their similarity, Bai Gu noticed Yi Futian first and decided to eliminate him. Yi Futian's eyes lit up. He glanced at Bai Gu. Bai Gu's eyes were cold. A gaze would have been enough to make one feel cold. The 3 of you should fight first and decide a victor, replied Yi Futian. He did not continue looking at Bai Gu. Hidden within his plain and calm tone was a sense of arrogance. This made the pupils of the others shrink as their faces distorted. Did he mean that he wanted the 3 of them to fight first and decide a victor before fighting him? It was as if the 3 of them were not worth his attention. Bai Gu also looked perplexed. He and Yi Futian had all of their chess pieces. That was why he chose to eliminate Yi Futian first. However, unexpectedly, the guy was even more outrageous than him. An air of blood-like beauty and charm surrounded her, dissuading people from touching her. The young city lord of Wushang City also looked at Yi Futian. He had the least chess pieces left, so the situation was disadvantageous for him. There was also no way he would let another person reap the benefits of a battle he was involved in. At that moment, Yi Futian seemed to have angered everyone. After seeing that all 3 of them had shifted their gaze to look at him, Yi Futian remained calm and casually said, "Well, if that's the case, all of you, together. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 1929. Not Too Shabby Yourself. Chapter 1929. Not Too Shabby Yourself. 3 people, together? Everyone gazed at Yi Futian in silence. Even though someone had earlier predicted that Yi Futian would be the ultimate winner and had rated him highly, which among the other 3 was not a genius with monster-like strength. Wushang City's young city lord Lu Qing, Bai Gu from Beiyuan continents by clan, and the Blood Empress. 3 extremely powerful cultivators. Even though Lu Qing lost 9 chess pieces, that was because his opponent was too strong. As for Bai Gu, he was like Yi Futian and, up until that point, had kept all 36 of his chess pieces. The 3 of them did not seem any weaker than Yi Futian. However, at that moment, Yi Futian actually asked the 3 of them to team up and face him together. Just what kind of arrogance was that? The 3 of them were also stunned briefly after hearing Yi Futian's statement. They looked perplexed. Earlier, Yi Futian said something crazy, which was to decide a victor among themselves first. That was understandable. However, later, Yi Futian asked the 3 of them to team up and fight him. It was no longer just crazy. It was extreme hubris and arrogance. You know you're going to be eliminated. That's why you wanted to seem more heroic, is that right? Bai Gu asked gently. The 3 of them had come to some agreement, which was to eliminate Yi Futian first. So, they wondered if it was because Yi Futian knew that he would lose that he intentionally said this. It looked like this was certainly a possibility. After all, they had already decided that they would get rid of Yi Futian first. Moreover, on the chessboard matrix, the worst outcome was to be eliminated. Even if one were excessively arrogant, there were no other more severe consequences. Yi Futian glanced at Bai Gu. He raised his hand. Then, in an instant, chess pieces began hovering in front of him. There were a total of 9 chess pieces. Every chess piece contained a buzzing sword will. Apart from the sword will, a frightening yin aura also oozed out of the chess pieces, seemingly freezing the air around them. If you say that is the case, then so be it. Just as Yi Futian finished speaking, the 9 chess pieces flew away and transformed into 9 sword wills that shot toward Bai Gu's location at the same time. Looks of surprise hung on the faces of many onlookers. Yi Futian only released 9 chess pieces against Bai Gu? Bai Gu looked at Yi Futian. All 36 chess pieces around him started to move. The frost will engulf the area around him. The 9 sword wills arrived in an instant. As if a frightening bolt of lightning infiltrating, the sword wills pierced through his frost domain. After entering his domain, the sword wills charged straight towards Bai Gu's body. The frost will strengthened, and the chess pieces in front of Bai Gu spun and danced while a divine giant frost dragon released an icy breath filled with an enormous amount of frost will that targeted Yi Futian's chess pieces. As that occurred, the sword will of the 9 chess pieces turned into a straight blade of light that emitted an even colder aura. The aura caused the surrounding frost will to freeze. The breath of the giant frost dragon was also frozen in place. Even the giant frozen dragon's movement began to slow. Many people looked surprised. However, before they could regain their bearings, the blade of light shot through and caused the body of the giant frost dragon to disintegrate bit by bit as it turned into nothingness. The 36 chess pieces were also destroyed. The chess pieces which had transformed into a sharp sword hovered in front of Bai Gu. It had stopped attacking. Bai Gu's gaze remained fixed. A powerful frost will emanated from his body as he stared at the floating chess pieces. At that moment, all his previously displayed confidence had vanished. 9 chess pieces had transformed into a sword that instantly destroyed all 36 of his chess pieces. It was a complete and instantaneous defeat. His earlier words still rang in his ears. Now, it seemed a little painful to hear them. Yi Futian was feigning arrogance so that he could lose more heroically? The truth was that he, Bai Gu, could not even take 1 hit. All the other practitioners also focused their attention on him. Bai Gu, the Bai clan genius from the Beiyuan continent, had utterly lost in this battle. The proud and insufferably arrogant attitude Bai Gu had been defeated in an instant when faced against the white-haired Renhuang who was just as handsome as he was. The white-haired Renhuang did not lose a single chess piece. No wonder he dared to make a statement as bold as asking the 3 of them to attack together. With the strength that he had displayed, he certainly had the right to do so. He was able to take care of Bai Gu with just 9 chess pieces. So, what about the young city lord of Wushang City, Lu Qing, as well as the Blood Empress? Was it going to be the same? Were 9 chess pieces sufficient? Weird expressions hung on the faces of many when that thought crossed their mind. They looked toward Lu Qing and the Blood Empress. They could see the two of them staring straight at Yi Futian. It was clear that they were also stunned by Yi Futian's earlier attack. From what they felt, Bai Gu was not weaker than either of them. However, he suffered an instantaneous defeat when facing Yi Futian. Would they be able to withstand Yi Futian's next attacks? They would soon find out. Yi Futian waved his hand, and this time, 18 chess pieces rose into the air. Separated into two sides, 9 pieces on each side. The scene prompted many outside the chessboard to look surprised. Was he going to fight the other two at the same time? As he said earlier, he was going to fight the other 3 powerful cultivators all by himself. 18 chess pieces spun and flew out. They transformed into sword wills just like the sword will attack used against Bai Gu earlier. There was not an inch of difference. As long as it was strong enough, one skill was enough to break through tens of thousands of spells. There was no need for Yi Futian to make any changes. Rumble. A frightening thunder roared across the sky. Lu Qing roared. His finger pointed forward toward the sky, and a thunder battle axe slashed downward to clash against the sword's silhouette that had just converged. In another direction, the Blood Empress' beautiful and alluring body moved as she danced. Crimson roses emerged and created an ocean of blood that devoured everything, including the sword flying towards her. The swords pierced through the 2 attacks almost at the same time. The crowd could only see the blades of light pass through the battle axe and the crimson roses before turning back into a straight ray of light that left an incredibly bright and beautiful divine light in its track. The blade of light passed, and the chess pieces turned into dust one by one. Only the 18 chess pieces which had transformed into the blades remained. Lu Qing and the Blood Empress' face distorted. The reason was not that they felt wronged or ridiculed, but that they had suffered a crushing defeat. They were all incredibly arrogant people. Earlier, the appearance of a mysteriously powerful cultivator made them skip several battles to avoid him. This had already created some thoughts on their minds. Now, they stepped up and entered this battle, but they still faced such a crushing defeat. It affected their self-confidence significantly. Were the paths that they cultivated so weak? As they thought of this, the light in Lu Qing and the Blood Empress' eyes dimmed. As for those watching the battle, some gasped while others were in shock. Too strong. Earlier, some cultivators actually thought that the winner of this battle would be one of the 3, Bai Gu, Lu Qing, or the Blood Empress. They would never have expected someone so strong would appear and completely crush the 3 of them. It was just like what one person predicted earlier. The victor of the battle was already decided. It was not one of the 3 participants that they favored. Rather, it was the white-haired Ren Huang. Shangguan Qiuye was also speechless. It looked like she still underestimated Yi Futian's strength. His great path was not on the same level as others. Perhaps the mysterious cultivator was the only one who was on a similar level. Yi Futian saw that the Blood Empress and Lu Qing were still staring at him. It was as if they had not yet recovered from that unexpected defeat. So, he said, "Don't take it to heart. If it were anyone else, the result would have been the same." Hearing Yi Futian's words, the expressions on the face of many onlookers changed. However, none could say anything in response. He did, after all, instantly defeat 3 amazingly talented and powerful cultivators. No matter what he said, he was in the right, and no one could rebut him. Yi Futian had the right to be proud and arrogant. If someone were to say something like this to the Blood Empress or Lu Qing on a normal day, the 2 would probably have gone berserk. However, at that moment, they felt nothing. They only glanced at Yi Futian in silence. They hoped that what he said was the case. It was that the white-haired Ren Huang was too strong and not their great path being too weak. "I am humbled. I look forward to your future performance," said Lu Qing. After that, he exited the chessboard. The Blood Empress stared at Yi Futian with a profound look with her charming eyes. Then she also left. She would see whether Yi Futian would also be just as powerful in the subsequent battle. The battle ended, and Yi Futian obtained a complete victory. There was not even a tinge of suspense. The scarier thing was that he did not lose a single chess piece. He walked towards the stone platform on the side. If he could maintain his 36 chess pieces in the upcoming 9-way battle, he would be even stronger than the mysterious cultivator from earlier. Now, that was something one would look forward to seeing. How do you guys know he would win? Someone asked the guy who predicted that Futian had already secured victory. In the battle at the cliff face earlier, he defeated all the cultivators from Penglai Continent's Jun clan. Did you not see that he has already incapacitated the young master of the Jun clan, Jun Chuyan? He took that great path opportunity, and the cliff face collapsed. How could someone like this not win? The person spoke with slanted eyes. He spoke as if everything was in his grasp, as if the one who won was him. Regardless, the people around him were stunned after hearing his words. Was he that strong? He took the great path opportunity, and the cliff face collapsed because of him. Many people looked at Futian, who sat on the platform. Futian sat there quietly cultivating. He did not look at the people underneath him. The reason why he showed such overwhelming strength was because he wanted to garner the attention of the Eastern Deity Island. This was to respond to unforeseen events about to take place in the Eastern Deity Island. In front of the Eastern Deity Gate, the mysterious cultivator opened his eyes. He glanced at Futian and said, "You're not too shabby." Futian raised his head and looked over after hearing that. He calmly locked eyes with the young man. This young man was the most talented person with the strongest potential that he had seen since coming to Eastern Deity Island. Of course, there was still some gap between the two of them. "You're not too shabby yourself," Futian replied with a smile. The young man's pupils shrunk slightly. Then he smiled and nodded in response. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." As they circled and flew around Futian's body, a sword screen was created. With Futian's body as the center, the sword screen surrounded him and emitted a frightening tearing noise. Intense sounds of crashing and clashing ensued. When the attacks of the Great Path transformed from chess pieces arrived and hit the sword screen, they were instantly torn apart and disintegrated into nothingness. The attacking chess pieces were crushed into bits and pieces instead. The scene made many feel despair. The huge gap in their powers of the Great Path made the might of their path contained in the chess pieces far weaker than Futian's, which meant that it was impossible for them to defeat Futian. Their chess pieces would initiate the attack. However, they were still obliterated by their opponent's defense. How were they supposed to fight? The difference in quality was something that could never be fixed by an increase in quantity. It was just like having many low-plane Renhuangs fight against a high-plane Renhuang. The conclusion of the battle would never be in doubt. As such, this battle also had no suspense. Seeing their chess pieces crushed to dust, the cultivators recalled their chess pieces. Futian waved his hand, and his 36 chess pieces drew multiple beautiful curves, creating multiple blades of light that flew across the sky and crushed all the remaining Great Path chess pieces of the other cultivators. When Futian destroyed all the chess pieces of the other participants, the chess pieces around him remained the same, all 36 pieces of them. He did not lose a single one. Not a single loss. Even stronger than the mysterious cultivator from before. Earlier, everyone had thought that the mysterious cultivator's result of losing only one chess piece would be a record for this session of Eastern Deity Island's opening. No one would have thought it possible that that record would be broken so quickly. Futian easily surpassed him and defeated all of his opponents with a perfect performance. For two amazingly exceptional people to pop up at the same time, it truly expanded the horizons of many people. The people of Eastern Deity Island would probably rejoice at this. Shengguan Qiuye watched as Futian walked toward the high platform beside the Eastern Deity Gate. She wondered if Futian would be the brightest individual for Eastern Deity Island's opening this time. In that case, the Eastern Deity Island would most certainly try to court him. If Futian could borrow Eastern Deity Island's strength, he would no longer have to be afraid of the Jun clan. While Eastern Deity Island had avoided secular world affairs and cultivation in recent years, they had actually continued to accumulate and build their strength. Now, their actual strength was a mystery. No one knew just how strong they were. However, based on Shangguan Chuye's guess, it was definitely not weaker than some of those major factions on the Penglai continent. Even though the Eastern Deity Island suffered a major disaster in the past, its background was something that should not be ignored. Even after many years had passed, inherited great path opportunities and medicinal pills within the Eastern Deity Island's territory were things that countless practitioners coveted, as evidenced by every opening of the Eastern Deity Island once every decade. With such a strong background, Shangguan Chuye inferred that Eastern Deity Island's actual strength at the moment might actually surpass some of the more common major factions in the Penglai continent. However, just how strong? That was harder to predict. Even the titans of the Penglai continent could not determine it. As such, if the Eastern Deity Island was willing to help Yi Futian, the threat of the Jun clan would no longer be that huge. With that thought, Shangguan Chuye raised her eyebrows and looked at Yi Futian high up above. Did he display such overwhelming strength because this was his objective in the first place? After all, everyone knew that once they left Eastern Deity Island, the cultivators of the Jun clan would most definitely target Yi Futian. First, he pulled her into the fray and locked her Shangguan clan in. After that, he set up the Eastern Deity Island. It looked like Yi Futian had already planned for everything since a long time ago. After glancing at Jun Chuyen behind her, Shangguan Chuye decided in her mind that, no matter what, regardless of whether she could befriend Yi Futian, at the very least, she would not become Yi Futian's enemy. Otherwise, even if they could suppress Yi Futian for a while, if an opportunity was found by Yi Futian, they could be eradicated like Jun Chuyen and the other cultivators from the Jun clan. Also, she wanted to get a chance to step across the Eastern Deity Gate. After seeing Yi Futian and witnessing his strength, Shangguan Chuye felt as if all her previous assets and strengths that she was proud of were not even worth mentioning. She needed to become a lot stronger. The Divine Prefecture was too big. There were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. While Penglai continent was still a relatively large continent, at the very least, it was situated in a central area among thousands of continents. Compared to the entire Divine Prefecture, it was still too small. She wanted to see things that were even further away. Yi Futian reached the high platform beside the Eastern Deity Gate. He sat down silently. On his side was the mysterious cultivator. Jiang Jioming, said the youngster to Yi Futian. It seemed like that was his name. Ever since stepping on Eastern Deity Island, he had never revealed his name once. This was the first time. Perhaps it was because he recognized Yi Futian's strength. He did not expect someone to do better than him, to arrive with all 36 chess pieces still intact. A perfect performance. Of course, he did not pay too much attention to the difference of one chess piece. Yi Futian was controlling Jun Chuyen, and the members of Eastern Deity Island did not question it. They seemed to leave Yi Futian to his own devices. However, their attitude towards Jiang Jioming was so different. From this, one could tell how huge the difference between the two of them was. This meant that Jiang Jioming's identity was not something that Jun Chuyen, a young master of a force of the Penglai continent, could compare with. What did this mean? It seemed clear that Jiang Jioming came from a force even more powerful than a top force of the Penglai continent. Even the Island Lord of Eastern Deity Island had sent her greetings. Island Lord is too kind. I came without being invited this time, so I should be asking her forgiveness instead, Jiang Jioming replied with a faint smile. He had the air of a handsome young man that made people feel comfortable around him. Eastern Deity Island has a rule that whoever has obtained an Eastern Deity token may enter the island. Young Master Jiang does not need to be so apologetic. Eastern Deity Island is honored to have you here, the woman continued politely. When Jun Chuyen, who was being controlled, overheard the conversation between them, he felt his heart turn cold. This was the place that he had always wanted to enter. It was just that he had never imagined that he would do so in such a fashion. However, what was even more humiliating was that when he arrived here, the members of Eastern Deity Island did not question the situation he was in. Yet they were so polite to another cultivator. Goddess Bai, for the sake of Jun clan, let me leave Eastern Deity Island, Jun Chuyen pleaded. His voice sounded exceptionally frail and weak. He seemed to be begging the members of Eastern Deity Island to let him go. Jun Qiuyan was also invited here by Bai Mu. He hated Bai Mu. If Bai Mu had not stopped him back then when they were outside Eastern Deity Island, he would have known Yi Futian's level of ability. In the Penglai deity region, no matter what he did, he couldn't end up in such a predicament. On the continent, Yi Futian would have died miserably. Yet, because of Bai Mu, he had given Yi Futian some leeway and had not forcefully made a move. Thus, he had ended up in his current miserable state. However, even though his hatred for her burned intensely inside of him, he still spoke in a pleading tone. He did not dare to reveal any of his hatred. He only wished that Eastern Deity Island would take into consideration that he was from the Jun clan. After all, this was Eastern Deity Island. They had the power to help him. Bai Mu looked at Jun Qiuyan. She seemed somewhat troubled. She indeed invited Jun Qiuyan, and his status was indeed extraordinary. He was a member of a top force of the Penglai continent. In a different situation, she would have certainly helped him. However, Jun Qiuyan had actively sought out Yi Futian, resulting in the outcome today. Jiang Jiuming glanced over at Zifeng with a serious look in his eyes. When Zifeng noticed his gaze, she similarly swept a glance at him. Her eyes seemed to contain a frightening divine fire. It actually caused Jiang Jiuming to feel a sharp pain in his eyes. He secretly felt that it was incredible. Back when Lord Phoenix was cultivating the divine fire of Wutong, it was a flame of the great path of the two extremes of life and death. Its might was terrifying. This Zifeng had continued inheriting this divine fire of the great path. Her cultivation was absolutely terrifying, and her potential was extremely high. The seniors of my clan have great admiration for Lord Phoenix, Jiang Jiuming said softly. He then looked at Zifeng. If the opportunity arises in the future, Goddess Zifeng can come visit my Jiang clan. Zifeng looked at Jiang Jiuming but did not respond. She did not know who Jiang Jiuming was. Zifeng, young Master Jiang, is from the ancient royal family Jiang clan. If you have the chance in the future, you can visit their clan, Goddess Huang explained. This astonished the surrounding people. The surname Jiang was actually from that ancient royal family that had existed for countless eons. He was from there. Shangguan Qiuye was slightly surprised. She had previously speculated Jiang Jiuming's identity. Now that she had confirmation, her heart wavered. The ancient royal family Jiang clan's ability was no weaker than that of Eastern Deity Island back in the day. They had giant-level existences. In the present day, the ancient royal family Jiang clan would be more powerful than Eastern Deity Island. Cultivators from thousands of continents had come here to train from experience. They wanted to obtain fateful encounters of the Great Path. Yet, for the ancient royal family, they did not need to do so. They lacked nothing. Even extremely precious pills and elixirs would not be so precious to the ancient royal family. Yi Futian naturally understood when he saw the slight changes in the look in Shangguan Qiuye's eyes. So Jiang Jiuming was from the ancient royal family. The situation should be the same as that of the forces with giant figures Yi Futian had encountered previously in the original realm. Jiang Jiuming might be the first cultivator from such a force that he had encountered ever since he arrived in the Divine Prefecture. Island Lord has already agreed to let me follow you to train after you leave Eastern Deity Island, Zifeng explained to Yi Futian softly as she stood next to him. This caused Shangguan Qiuye to stop in her tracks for a moment. Her gaze was frozen. Coming to Eastern Deity Island to train this time was truly exciting. First, Jun Qiuyan's cultivation had been crippled. Later, Shangguan Qiuye encountered a cultivator of the ancient royal family Jiang clan. Now, the daughter of Lord Phoenix, the sacred phoenix of Wutong Island, wanted to follow Yi Futian out to train. What was going on? She was the divine bird of Wutong Island, an existence that even an 8th-tier cultivator could not handle. For countless years, numerous cultivators had sought her out or coveted the divine fire of Wutong, but no one had ever succeeded. Yet, now, the divine bird had proactively claimed that the island lord had given her agreement. Zifeng would follow Yi Futian to train in the outside world. This was practically unbelievable. Shangguan Qiuye's beautiful eyes looked at Yi Futian. No one could tell what emotion was in that gaze. However, at that moment, Behind them, Condor Sama's feathers were all standing straight up. Condor Sama's position was threatened. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Little Condor naturally could tell that this phoenix was incredible, much more so than he was. Little Condor naturally could tell that this phoenix was incredible, much more so than he was. Now, this brat actually wanted to follow Master to train in the outside world. Wasn't she trying to fight for Master's favor with Condor-sama? The crucial point was that this brat was female and was beautiful. It was too much of a challenge for Condor-sama. All right, Yi Futian replied as he nodded his head. He naturally would not reject a sacred phoenix from following him. This sacred phoenix had unlimited potential and could cultivate to become a top-tier demonic existence. There were many demonic beasts in the world, yet there were a rare few that could cultivate to become a top-tier demonic beast. By cultivating the divine fire of Wutong, sacred phoenix, who had a flawless great path, would have a chance. Eastern Deity Island Lord also agreed to let her pursue her own cultivation. That way, Yi Futian could establish his relationship with Eastern Deity Island. After he left Eastern Deity Island, the pressure from the Jun clan of the Penglai continent would naturally be solved. What about the divine fire of Wutong? Yi Futian asked as he smiled at Zifeng. Zifeng revealed a strange look. The divine fire of Wutong was in the Wutong. She could only rely on its power to cultivate. It was difficult to take it with her. Can I try and see whether we can take it with you? Yi Futian said to Zifeng. Zifeng's beautiful eyes revealed a strange look as she looked at him. She could take the divine fire with her? Then, before this, when he played the guqin and approached her, why did she feel as though she had been conned? That is if you need it. If you don't need it, then forget about it, Yi Futian continued with a smile. His gaze was gentle and made others feel very comfortable. Zifeng looked him in the eye. He did not seem like a trickster. She had already made arrangements with elder sister Island Lord. She naturally could not change her mind. However, could he truly bring the divine fire of Wutong along with them? In front of them, Jiang Jiuming turned his head back and glanced at Zifeng and Yi Futian. He never imagined that the offspring of Lord Phoenix would actually follow Yi Futian willingly. As expected, this person was extremely outstanding, otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to emerge victorious in the game of chess and enter through the Eastern Deity Gate. The group continued advancing. Bai Mu, who was beside Yi Futian, said to him, Island Lord has ordered us to prepare a banquet and to also allow you to select pills. Many thanks, Yi Futian replied as he nodded his head. The group continued forward and passed by many places. The core island of Eastern Deity Island was like a painting. It was a sight to behold. Walking around here made people feel comfortable, like they were encapsulated in its poetic beauty. Finally, they came before an ancient palace. A banquet was already laid out. Many goddesses were standing in various locations, seeming there to welcome them. Such a scale made Yi Futian and the others feel flattered. Eastern Deity Island's standing was extraordinary. They bestowed cultivators with fateful encounters of the Great Path and also gifted them pills. They also treated them so well that there was nothing for them to nitpick about. Everyone, please be seated. Make yourselves comfortable, Goddess Huang announced with a smile. The group immediately found their seats. Goddess Huang brought Jiang Jiuming to the head seat. After all, the status of the ancient royal family Jiang clan needed to be respected. Yi Futian did not mind. His group simply found a spot to sit in the center of the crowd. Bai Mu was also taking care of them, occasionally chatting with them. There were many seats in front of the banquet, seemingly prepared for the other cultivators of Eastern Deity Island. Aside from that, at the very front, there was a master seat that was reserved for the master of this banquet. Island Lord will come in person momentarily, Bai Mu explained softly when she saw Yi Futian glancing over in that direction. Yi Futian nodded. He had never imagined that Eastern Deity Island would be so grand. Voices could be heard coming from nearby. The crowd turned their gazes in the direction of the voices. They saw a group of silhouettes, who were talking casually to each other, appear. These people had an outstanding temperament, and their cultivation was all at the Renhuang Plain. Some had dignified appearances, while others had elegant airs to them. Previously, every person the crowd had seen was a woman. This group of silhouettes that appeared was all men. "It is Emperor Pingyuan," Shengguan Qiuye said at that moment as she narrowed her gaze slightly. She was focused on one person among them. Her beautiful eyes revealed a strange look. Two other Penglai continent cultivators also made sounds. They also seemed to call out someone's name. They had clearly recognized someone. Yi Futian looked at Shengguan Qiuye. As she looked over there, she explained, "He is a renowned Renhuang on Penglai continent. He has been famous for a long time. 10 years ago, he entered Eastern Deity Island to cultivate. After coming back, he rarely appeared in public. I never thought that he had entered Eastern Deity Island again. It seems that the rumors were actually true." "What rumors?" Yi Futian asked. "Many powerful Renhuangs who come to Eastern Deity Island to train will be invited to stay here to cultivate, becoming a member of the island. My clansman once mentioned this before. I have heard of a few of these people. Today, I managed to see some of them with my own eyes. It still comes as a surprise," Shengguan Qiuye explained. "There are actually so many cultivators here. There seem to be many famous figures from long ago among them." Yi Futian did not feel too surprised by this. Eastern Deity Island had invited cultivators from thousands of continents to come here to train. They provided many benefits to the cultivators. They naturally had their own agenda for doing so. It was impossible for them to do so purely just to aid the people of the world in their cultivation. Eastern Deity Island should be planning to bolster their forces. This might be related to the fall of Eastern Deity Island's supreme deity Donglai back then. With so many prominent figures coming to Eastern Deity Island each time, how could Eastern Deity Island miss this opportunity? They would naturally extend invitations to Yi Futian and the rest. They would receive similar treatment as well. On the other hand, the cultivators who came to Eastern Deity Island similarly wanted to rely on the resources of the island. Either that or Eastern Deity Island proposed enough favorable conditions to make the offer irresistible. If so, it was not strange for the cultivators to join Eastern Deity Island. The cultivators who arrived chatted and laughed as they looked over at the people sitting here. Many of them revealed friendly smiles. From the appearances of the cultivators, they seemed to be living very fulfilled lives. "Do you know who I am?" Emperor Pingyuan asked as he looked at Shengguan Qiuye. Prior to this, Shengguan Qiuye had not spoken through transmitted thoughts. She had been talking to them out loud. With Emperor Pingyuan's level of cultivation, he naturally overheard her. Shengguan Qiuye replied, nodding her head. "I am Shengguan Qiuye from Shengguan clan. Pleased to meet you, senior." "So you are the little girl from the Shengguan clan. You have reached such a high plane to be able to come here." "Not bad," Emperor Pingyuan commented. His cultivation was powerful. He was now in 8th-tier existence. Shengguan Qiuye was indeed a junior in his eyes. "Senior, have you been cultivating on Eastern Deity Island all this while?" Shengguan Qiuye asked. "Most of the time. I will occasionally go outside," Emperor Pingyuan replied. Eastern Deity Island has many special training grounds as well as countless pills and spirit herbs suitable for cultivating. Little girl, you should also join Eastern Deity Island. It will certainly be greatly beneficial to your cultivation." Shengguan Qiuye smiled but did not give a reply. Emperor Pingyuan had praised Eastern Deity Island so highly. From the looks of it, these people were indeed sincere. Eastern Deity Island must have aided them in their cultivation with sufficient sincerity in order for these cultivators to actively invite other Renhuangs to join. At that moment, there were cries of astonishment. Many goddesses bowed slightly in one direction and called out, "Island Lord." The crowd turned to look in that direction. They saw an empress-like silhouette walk over towards them. Her appearance was otherworldly. It made others feel enchanted at a glance. At the same time, those who gazed upon her felt a sense of distance between them, as though she was untouchable. She was the Eastern Deity Island Lord. Shengguan Qiuye thought to herself. This was also her first time seeing the Island Lord. Prior to this, she had heard about her. Almost no one from the Penglai continent had seen her before. Island Lord's beauty was peerless. She walked up to the master seat and looked at the crowd. "Greeting, Island Lord." Right now, even the powerful cultivators who just arrived also bowed slightly as they greeted the Island Lord. They seemed to show this female Island Lord great respect. "Everyone, you are all too kind," Island Lord replied as she bowed back at the crowd with a smile. Her gaze shifted over to Yi Futian's side. She said, "This time, Eastern Deity Island is open and once again has welcomed prominent figures from all over. This is a grand occasion for the island. Hence, we have invited you all here today for a few drinks. I hope you all won't mind the short notice." "Island Lord is too kind," someone said. Eastern Deity Island Lord had such a high status. She would definitely not be inferior when compared to the heads of the top forces of the Penglai continent. For her to personally appear to sit with them was already a great honor. "Everyone, you do not need to be so formal. Please sit," Island Lord said as she extended her hand when she saw many people getting up. She also sat on her master seat. She looked at the crowd and said, "Eastern Deity Island has a rule that those who can make it here will be gifted with pills. Naturally, today will be no exception. I am sure that you all have been waiting for this moment for a long while." As she said this, she looked behind her. 9 silhouettes stepped forward. In each of their hands, they held a porcelain bottle. Inside, the bottles contained extremely precious pills of the Great Path. There are 9 pills here. Each pill is a superb grade pill. The 9 people who have made it here today can each choose 1 pill. "Please choose," the female Island Lord continued. The gazes of the crowd were all on the pills in the hands of the 9 goddesses. However, Jiang Jiuming still had his head lowered as he sat there quietly. He did not look at the pills. Although these pills were precious for cultivating, for him, these were not that important. The reason why he had come here was not for these pills, but for the Eastern Deity Island's elixir. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. With the life spirit of the world tree, his sensory ability of the Great Path was already extremely powerful. The effects of the pills would most likely be limited. It was just as Yi Futian had raved about before. He had a divine body of the heavenly path. Even though it was an arrogant form of speech, in reality, this could be considered his talent in cultivation. The other cultivators chose their pills one after another. Very quickly, the pills were chosen until only one was left. Only one person had yet to choose. This person was surprisingly Jiang Jiuming. As a descendant of the ancient royal family, these pills did not tempt him. He did not mind. Hence, he did not contend with the others. "Young Master Jiang," Goddess Huang said, "there is only 1 pill left." "No problem. I will take this pill then." "It is quite all right," Jiang Jiuming replied with a smile as he received the pill. He appeared very casual about it. The members of Eastern Deity Island could tell that Jiang Jiuming was not too concerned about it. These pills did not draw his attention. However, the members of Eastern Deity Island naturally knew his identity, so they would not think much of it. The 9 goddesses stepped down. The Island Lord looked at the crowd and said, "Please enjoy the banquet. Make yourselves comfortable." "Many thanks, Island Lord." The crowd thanked her as they nodded their heads. They began to enjoy the banquet. Once wine was down their throats, some people began to reveal drunken looks. They had strange expressions as they continued to enjoy their food. They discovered that the power of the Great Path in their bodies was fluctuating. They were all surprised. They looked at each other. They wanted to say something, yet no one did so first. An elder, who cultivated on Eastern Deity Island, laughed in another corner. He said, "You should be feeling it now. This banquet is prepared using the ingredients harvested off Eastern Deity Island. All of the dishes are beneficial for cultivation. Although the effects are not as strong as the pills, if taken over long periods of time, they are still very beneficial. Do you want to enjoy such delicacies every day in the future?" The crowd looked at each other. They were all moved. No wonder so many powerful cultivators were willing to stay on Eastern Deity Island to cultivate. The temptation was indeed strong. If you do not have a spiritual partner, you will also have the chance to train with the goddesses of Eastern Deity Island. It all depends on your level, another cultivator jokingly said. He pointed towards a couple across from him and said, "Look at these two. They are a model couple." The crowd looked over at the couple. They were sitting together. The man was handsome and looked extraordinary, while the woman had beauty beyond comparison. They both had an otherworldly air to them. They were both Renhuangs who had become spiritual partners, training together. The goddesses of Eastern Deity Island are not so easy to curry favor from. Whether or not these cultivators have the ability to do so has yet to be determined, another person said with a laugh. The island lord had yet to speak, and these fellows had praised Eastern Deity Island so highly. However, the draw of Eastern Deity Island for cultivators was indeed powerful. "Young Master Yi, do you have a spiritual partner?" Bai Mu asked softly beside Yi Futian. She looked at Yi Futian with her beautiful eyes. Her voice was gentle. "I have," Yi Futian replied as he smiled and nodded his head. Bai Mu glanced at Xia Qingyuan, who was beside him. She seemed to be sitting the closest to Yi Futian. There was more to their relationship than met the eye. She might be his spiritual partner. For someone to be young Master Ye's spiritual partner, the person must certainly be extremely outstanding, Bai Mu said as she looked at Xia Qingyuan and smiled. However, Xia Qingyuan sat quietly there and did not respond. She did not even look at Bai Mu. "Has Goddess always trained on Eastern Deity Island?" Yi Futian asked, not continuing to discuss the topic of spiritual partners. "Yes," Bai Mu answered, nodding her head. "Many years ago, I was found by my master and brought to Eastern Deity Island to train. If it weren't for my master, I would probably have a different life now." Training on Eastern Deity Island could transform one's cultivation physique and talents, forming them into a powerful cultivator. In reality, most of the goddesses of Eastern Deity Island came from non-prominent families. Otherwise, they would not have been brought to Eastern Deity Island. After coming here, their cultivation could be said to have skyrocketed. Hence, they were all grateful towards Eastern Deity Island. Eastern Deity Island also did not force them to do anything. Even on the matter of their spiritual partners, they could choose of their own free will. Yi Futian nodded his head. Eastern Deity Island had innate conditions, which indeed were very attractive to cultivators. From the looks of it now, the ability that Eastern Deity Island accumulated over these past few years was far more powerful than what the outside world imagined it to be. Are you all interested in joining Eastern Deity Island to cultivate? If you are willing to join us, you can freely comprehend any of the great path's fateful encounters on the island in the future. We will also provide sufficient pills to aid you all in cultivating higher planes. At that moment, the master of the banquet, the island lord, finally spoke. She extended her invitation to the cultivators here. The crowd was somewhat quiet. Such a matter was not easily decided in a short amount of time. If they were to receive these benefits and train on Eastern Deity Island, they would be considered members of the island. Eastern Deity Island must be planning for something in the future for them to do so. "I will not be joining Eastern Deity Island to train," Jiang Jiuming said with a smile. "That is not the reason why I came here." "Young Master Jiang, why have you come to Eastern Deity Island?" the island lord inquired. Jiang Jiuming looked at the island lord. He smiled and replied, "I am here for the item that Senior Supreme Deity Donglai was seeking back in the day. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." When Jiang Jiuming said this, many gazes immediately looked towards him. The item that Senior Supreme Deity Donglai was seeking for back in the day? Yi Futian revealed a curious look. He looked at Beigong Ao and the others beside him. He saw that Beigong Ao was also shaking his head. Clearly, Beigong Ao also did not know about it. Did the legendary elixir actually exist? A thought surfaced in Shengguan Qiuye's mind. There had indeed been such a rumor circulating within the Penglai continent. It was rumored that Eastern Deity Island had an elixir and that Supreme Deity Donglai had not truly perished back then. Instead, he had kept sustaining his life with the nourishment of the elixir. However, most people did not believe such rumors. Countless years had passed. It was impossible for Supreme Deity Donglai to still be alive. Island Lord had her gaze similarly locked on Jiang Jiuming. Those beautiful eyes suddenly contained a formless pressure that landed on Jiang Jiuming. These past few years, many people with agendas had made their way to Eastern Deity Island. Jiang clan was an ancient royal family. It was not strange for Jiang Jiuming to know about this. It was just that ever since so many people had failed back then, it had been a long time since anyone had made such a request. She never imagined that Jiang Jiuming would come here for this. Could it be that he thought that he was special? Your level of attainment is still too low. If Renhuang Jiang had come, it might be possible, the female island lord said with a smile. Her tone was somewhat unfriendly. Jiang Jiuming had actually come here, seeking the elixir. How will I know if I don't try? Jiang Jiuming asked, not heeding the attitude of the island lord. He continued saying, even if there is no chance for me, I can at least broaden my horizons. I will have at least seen it before. Are you sure you want to see it? The island lord continued asking. Jiang Jiuming nodded his head and replied, before coming here, I heard of how miraculous the elixir was. Hence, I wanted to see it. I used this opportunity to come to Eastern Deity Island for this reason. I hope Island Lord may grant my wish. Island Lord lifted a wine glass and sipped it with her red lips. She then put it down and looked towards Jiang Jiuming. She immediately got up and came forward. Her long dress trailed behind her. She appeared graceful and dignified, as though she was a peerless empress. All right, since the ancient royal family, Jiang clan wants to see it, I will grant you your wish, the island lord proclaimed loudly. Follow me to the restricted area of Eastern Deity Island. Yes, many goddesses replied as they stood up and followed island lord. Many cultivators looked at each other. Most people also knew about this matter. However, no one had mentioned it before. This was the first time they had heard someone mention it up front. Would the island lord also allow them to see it? What was the elixir actually like? On Yi Futian's side, their group was whispering amongst themselves. They were all discussing the elixir. Clearly, for many of them, the elixir of Eastern Deity Island was just the stuff of rumors. It was not real. However, it seemed that it truly existed. Island Lord was also leading them to take a look at it now. Most of the crowd followed the Island Lord. Very quickly, a group of people was traversing through the sky above Eastern Deity Island. After a short while, they arrived at a vast expanse of herb forest. Many cultivators were guarding this place. All sorts of precious and rare medicinal herbs and plants were grown here. They passed over this place. Yi Futian glanced down at the ground below. He actually saw many precious plants that they had seen before on the island. This region was filled with extremely rich signs of life. As they advanced, they came before an ancient towering mountain. A crack was opened on the side of this mountain. A frightening aura emanated from within. It was a rich life aura that made everyone feel very comfortable. The elixir is inside. If you want it, you can enter to retrieve it, the island lord declared. This caused the crowd to reveal strange expressions. Would Eastern Deity Island allow people to take the elixir so easily? Of course, this was impossible. That meant that the elixir was not so easily retrieved. However, why was it that a mere pill could not be taken away? Many people were filled with curiosity. Yi Futian looked at Jiang Jiuming. He saw that the other party had a very serious expression. Since he had come for the elixir, he clearly knew more about it than others. He should be clear about everything regarding the elixir. From his expression, Yi Futian understood that the elixir would not be easy to obtain. Island Lord did not say anything. She merely stood quietly to the side and watched them. Then, Jiang Jiuming led the Jiang clan cultivators forward. The rest of the crowd wanted to follow them, yet they were somewhat hesitant to do so. They were worried that the Island Lord would be dissatisfied, so they waited outside. The group of cultivators from the Jiang clan very quickly disappeared into the crack of the ancient mountain, stepping into it. There, The frightening aura of the Great Path immediately cut off their wills. They were unable to sense what was inside. They could only see with their eyes, but they could not see clearly at all. Rumble. The sound of intense collisions came from inside. It was as though intense currents of the Great Path were present within there. Various sounds kept coming out from within. The rumbling continued without end. Beside Yi Futian, Zifeng glanced ahead with a cold gaze. She had entered this place before. Even a cultivator of the ancient royal family would not be able to take away the elixir. Before this, he had inherited the fateful encounter of the Great Path on the cliff face. If he entered the crack in the mountain, would the result be the same? Do you want to go in? Yi Futian asked her back. Shengguan Qiuye replied, nodding her head. You can go first. I'll wait and see, Yi Futian answered. Shengguan Qiuye did not hold back and actually walked right in. However, not long after, Shengguan Qiuye also emerged like everyone else. Her beautiful eyes contained a look of astonishment. What is in there? Yi Futian inquired. Go take a look for yourself, Shengguan Qiuye replied, not telling Yi Futian what she saw. He also did not pursue the matter, waiting there quietly. As figures entered and emerged, no one managed to succeed. However, they had all been awed by something. When those who entered before saw the others emerge just like they had, they breathed sighs of relief. Most likely, no one would be able to retrieve this elixir. It was just as the Island Lord had said. If the Jiang clan's powerful existence were to come, only he may have a chance of retrieving the elixir. Finally, no one else entered into the crack. Island Lord asked out loud, "Does anyone else want to go in to take a look?" No one responded. Just then, Yi Futian stepped out and said, "I also wish to broaden my horizons." "Suit yourself," Island Lord replied. Her expression remained the same. She did not think much about it. Yi Futian then stepped forward and entered into the crack in the ancient mountain. He directly passed through the mountain and entered a gigantic space. When Yi Futian arrived on this side, he instantly sensed an extremely intimate aura. When he saw the scene before him, his eyes revealed a look of astonishment. Before him, there was a tree. It was a gigantic divine tree with countless branches and leaves. This tree seemed to nurture all forms of paths, emanating many different types of auras of the Great Path. It was as though the tree could accommodate all things within it. Inside the ancient tree, the most powerful aura of the Great Path was the aura of the Great Path of Life. This was the ancient tree's original aura. What astonished Yi Futian was that this gigantic ancient tree actually had a human shape. It was as though it was a humongous tree god. This human-shaped divine tree had a head, eyes, arms, body, as well as 2 legs. It completely resembled a human. Right then, a brilliant life aura was shining from the head of this human-shaped tree. There seemed to be an elixir there. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. His figure suddenly became a frightening spiral that consumed the way of life of the tree. In just a split second, the surrounding way of life surged into his body. Inside his body, there was also a divine tree shining with a strange divine halo. It seemed ethereal, like a king among divine trees. It was staring back at the ancient tree outside. The ancient tree outside also sensed its presence. The two actually developed some form of resonance with each other. Swooshing sounds kept ringing in Yi Futian's ear as the branches frenziedly swept towards Yi Futian. The branches actually dove into Yi Futian's body, being drawn towards his aura, allowing themselves to be consumed by the aura. The elixir on the ancient tree released blinding divine light. From within the elixir that was merged with the divine tree, an illusory figure seemed to faintly appear. The figure's temperament was ethereal, as though he was a celestial being. Supreme Deity Donglai. Yi Futian revealed a strange look. Could it be that the absurd things that Shengguan Qiuye previously told him were true? Yi Futian saw the light released by the elixir grow brighter and brighter. Frightening divine halos completely lit up the space within this domain of the Great Path. The emerald green divine light was like the light of life. He could hear a crisp sound, as though the elixir was shattering. It merged directly into the divine tree and then continued to surge into Yi Futian's body, merging once again with the divine tree within him. Yi Futian greedily absorbed this power of the great path of life. He felt his life aura swell. It was still continuing to rise. His organs, meridians, and life force seemed to also grow stronger. He was full of life force. He could clearly sense that as his life force grew stronger, his blood, qi, and will were also strengthened. Life force was the source of human existence. As time passed slowly, both the divine tree as well the elixir contained within it disappeared, consumed by Yi Futian. The exuberant life aura within him made him feel as though he was filled with endless power. His temperament also went through some changes. Yet he could not describe what had changed exactly. Just then, a will suddenly surfaced within his mind. This caused him to be momentarily stunned. The illusory figure had directly appeared in his mind in the form of will. He was still ethereal, as though he was a celestial being. "Are you Senior Supreme Deity Donglai?" Yi Futian asked as his will wavered. The other party replied, nodding his head. He continued, "Let down your will. I will let you know everything that you wish to know." "All right," Yi Futian answered. He was not on guard. The other party's will was weak and feeble. It was impossible for him to take anything from Yi Futian. Hence, Yi Futian was at ease to allow the other party's will to merge into his own. In an instant, countless images surfaced in his mind. They seemed to be images of Supreme Deity Donglai's legendary life. Of course, what was more precious was that Supreme Deity Donglai imparted everything he had learned into Yi Futian's will, including his vast knowledge in alchemy techniques. This made Yi Futian feel strange. He had just come in here to try his luck. He never imagined that he would not only consume the elixir but also receive the lifelong teachings of Supreme Deity Donglai. From the looks of it, he was truly fortunate to stumble upon this. He did not know how the successor of Supreme Deity Donglai, the female island lord, would think of this. The elixir nurtured the life of the divine tree and nourished the remaining will of Supreme Deity Donglai. Supreme Deity Donglai had wanted to utilize the elixir and the divine tree to remain immortal. Yet his plans had all been wrecked by Yi Futian. "It is your good fortune to be able to come here. You can now be considered half a disciple of mine. I hope that you can take care of Eastern Deity Island." Supreme Deity Donglai directly imprinted this thought in Yi Futian's mind. Yi Futian nodded his head and answered solemnly, "Senior, rest assured. I will do whatever is within my power." The illusory figure nodded his head slightly. He then gradually turned blurrier until he completely disappeared, vanishing into thin air. At that moment, Supreme Deity Donglai was truly considered to have disappeared from the world. Yi Futian took a deep breath. He looked at the empty ancient mountain. All the power of the way of life here was no longer present. Right now, he still had another predicament to face. He did not know what the island lord would do to him. Yi Futian turned around and headed outside. The people outside were all idly chatting to one another. They appeared exceptionally casual, as though they did not take this event to be a big issue anymore. When they saw Yi Futian equally as disheveled as the rest, they only smiled, revealing understanding looks. Island Lord glanced over at Yi Futian with her beautiful eyes. She then looked at the crowd and said, "Let's go." As she said this, she turned around and walked away. The rest followed her and left the place. After the crowd returned to the island, they were invited to rest on Eastern Deity Island. They could move around freely and also contemplate on whether or not they wanted to stay to cultivate on Eastern Deity Island. A palace was arranged for Yi Futian's group to cultivate in. The place was elegant. Xia Qingyuan's beautiful eyes looked at Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked back at her and asked, "What are you looking at?" "You seem somewhat different," Xia Qingyuan replied. Yi Futian was stunned. She could tell? "What seems different about me?" Yi Futian inquired. Xia Qingyuan shook her head gently and said, "It's just a feeling." "Your senses are really sharp," Yi Futian said with a smile. Xia Qingyuan looked at him. Yi Futian then said, "The members of Eastern Deity Island should be coming to find me soon." When Xia Qingyuan heard Yi Futian say this, she immediately understood. He must have had a different experience compared to other people when he was in the ancient mountain. Just as they were chatting, a group of silhouettes traversed across the sky. They quickly arrived outside their palace. One of the silhouettes said, "Bai Mu wishes to see Pavilion Master Yi." "Goddess, please come in." Yi Futian turned his head and said out loud. Xia Qingyuan also looked over in that direction. The members of Eastern Deity Island actually came. Bai Mu and her group immediately came up to Yi Futian. She bowed slightly and said, "Island Lord invites Pavilion Master Yi to meet with her." "All right," Yi Futian replied, nodding his head. He could not just leave Eastern Deity Island like that. He wouldn't be able to either. "Many thanks, Pavilion Master Yi." Bai Mu thanked him as she nodded. She then turned and headed off. Yi Futian told Xia Qingyuan and the others, "Wait for me here." As he said this, he followed Bai Mu alone and came to the residence of the island lord. When Yi Futian arrived, there were only a few people present. Aside from the island lord, there were a few figures with very powerful auras. This alarmed Bai Mu and the other goddesses. What was going to happen? "Greetings, Island Lord," Yi Futian said as he bowed slightly. Island Lord acknowledged his greeting by nodding her head. She then said to Bai Mu and the other goddesses, "You may all step down." Understood. Although Bai Mu and the rest were curious, they still stepped down and left the place. There were only a few members, and the Island Lord left in this place together with Yi Futian. A formless pressure landed on Yi Futian. This peerless Island Lord released a terrifying pressure of the great path that enveloped Yi Futian. "What happened to the divine tree as well as the elixir?" she interrogated in a cold tone. "I happened to obtain them by chance. They have already merged into my body," Yi Futian responded. The female Island Lord had waited until now to meet with him privately. She must not want other people to know about this. From the looks of it, he should be quite safe. The other party would not do anything to him. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.